What's up, Wizards? It's Dev, and my cousin Ziggy here from Mtg. We like it a magic, and today we're gonna actually do like a video, like a real video. It's not just gameplay or something like that. You know, I actually wrote things down that I'm then gonna relay to you in list form. A real video. And first things first, elephant in the room. I'm aware. I'm aware of the strange natural phenomenon going on top of my head right now. You don't have to mention it. I get it. Yes, I know, commenter. Just shave it off is what you always tell me, but Mrs. Deb from SBMTG likes it, and that's all that really matters. I'm lucky because she says I look like Frasier, and what that would not normally be lucky. But why that's lucky for me is that my wife happens to be like the only person that ever existed that finds Frasier attractive. So I lucked out in that department. But anyway, I got a video to do, so let's talk about the core set 2021. It turns out that it's like May 23rd as I produce this video, and core set 2021 is due out on July 3rd. It's due out on Arena on June 25th. So that's like a month, which means that we're only like 2 or 3 weeks away from core set 2021 spoilers. That's so insane. If I'm going to talk about this set and speculate or whatever, just discuss what I want out of this set, then I better go ahead and do it before I have to start like actually reviewing the set. So let's do it today. Here's 10 cards that I want reprinted in the core set. Now, here's the thing. I want to go ahead and also get this out of the way. One more sort of addendum before we start the list. Usually, YouTubers use these lists as a chance to be like, these cards need to be reprinted in Commander because they're really expensive. And honestly, those lists have their place. There's an awful lot of EDH players, and awful lot of them want reprints so they can actually get their hands on cards that are good. I usually don't use these videos as a means to do that. I usually use these videos, and I will today as well, just to talk about some cards that I personally want in Standard, either for meta reasons or because I think they could, propel some certain decks higher into, the tiers than they are right now. So I usually kind of look at this from a Standard metagame perspective more than I look at it from a save Commander players money perspective, which is important. I don't hate you, Commander players. I love you very much, actually. But most lists on YouTube cater to that side of the crowd. So I like to do something a little bit different with my list. There's also the fact that I've done like a bajillion of these. I've been on YouTube for 5 years. So I've done a bunch of these reprints that I want videos, and I don't want to just keep doing the same cards every time. So I'm at this point looking for some stuff, some really weird stuff that needs to be reprinted or hasn't been reprinted yet. So if there's cards on this list that why would he point that out? It's because I've already pointed out like a bunch of other better cards that I'd rather have reprinted. Just go watch those videos. They're basically the same as this one. Only, I guess, in a different meta, which does matter like a huge amount because there's going to be some really meta-specific stuff on this list that probably wouldn't pertain to the other lists that I've made on this subject. But anyway, I want to go ahead and get into it. I've been just babbling for a while. Are you still here? Holy crap. Thanks. But anyway, let's go ahead and hop into it with an honorable mention that's not really that meta-dependent at all, honestly. And that's just lands. I got to talk about some lands for a minute because I want Pain lands. That'd be fine. I think that would help out a lot of aggro decks in this format that want to play more than one color. That'd be nice. And that also aren't Knights decks, because, Knight decks get, like, tournament grounds, but other decks just don't have mana that want to play 3 colors. So I think that's a problem. I think Pain lands would really help solve that, as well as Buddy lands, also called check lands some of the time. Both of these are just relatively fast lands that I think would help out Standard. And also, if you do reprint Pain lands, I want to see Sulphur Springs with the little guy in the hot tub. That's you better do it. Don't make new art for it. You got perfectly amazing art that everyone loves already. So one of those, I suspect, or if you wanted to be super spicy, Wizards, what you could always do is print the Nimbus Maze cycle of lands. That'd be pretty cool. I would like if you did that. We've got Triomes and Shocklands for now in the format, and both of those have like land types. So boom, you could just you could actually print a cycle of Nimbus Mazes, and that's probably a better pick. But anyway, I just want lands. I just want untapped most of the time multicolored lands, because we're gonna lose Shocklands in the fall, and even though they might just reprint Shocklands in the fall or in core set for that matter. Whatever they want to do. I'm not sure that they're ready to abandon a Shockland Standard when they've really put a lot of effort into making like 3 and 4 color decks a thing. But who knows? Who knows what route they'll take as far as lands go. But we've all gotten used to having shock lands, and we might not have them for too much longer, so we at least need lands to replace those. But more often, or more accurately, I want lands like this to help out existing decks that need faster mana, because there's a bunch of them. Let's actually start this thing off with a land. This is the last land on the list, I promise, but I just didn't want to put Unclaimed Territory in the honorable mention, because I think that if I had to pick like one land that I think they might actually print that I would like them to print, it would probably be Unclaimed Territory right now, crazily enough. I mean, I want Painlands and Buddylands, but I will also take Unclaimed Territory all day. First of all, this would make the Knights deck really strong, because it effectively gets to play like 4 copies of Tournament Grounds, which would be, or 8 copies of Tournament Grounds, rather. So that'd be good. That's a good thing, but it would also make decks like Mardu Humans like a lot more streamlined in terms of the mana, and the mana is a problem. It's a huge problem for 3-color aggro decks right now. So if I wanted a card to help those out, I would just do Unclaimed Territory. There's so many cool little tribes in Standard that I want more of a reason to play. And Unclaimed Territory probably wouldn't like break anything in Standard right now, obviously, but it'd be a nice little utility land that you could print in pretty much any set, honestly, but especially a core set, because core sets are super generic. I was looking for generic cards, and Unclaimed Territory just, I think, hits the right spot of not too broken printability in any set, and looking probably about time to have it back. I mean, I know Ixalan just rotated, but I miss Unclaimed Territory, I guess, is the point. Also, it'd be pretty sweet to go with Kahira decks, but I think I'm done with this one for now, so let's go ahead and move on to number 9, which is probably the first like actual spicy pick on the list, and that's Insolent Neonate. I want this back like a lot. This is just a really, really good utility card that would help out a lot of specific decks in this format, like right now. Like Lurrus, for instance, you can just replay this out of your graveyard in a Lurrus deck over and over, and that would be at least decent. It would help out a bunch of different Reanimator kind of builds in this format for what that's worth. And it's worth kind of a lot. It's even a creature that might be decent in Winota decks because it's an early, non-human creature that can swing to make Winota swings a little bit bigger. Or if you don't have Winota, by turn 4, you can just sack your Neonate and discard a crap card in your hand and try to draw up that Winota if you don't have it yet. So there could be some cool things that Neonate could do in this format, even beyond what I've already just said. Neonate was just such a flexible, cool little tool to have while it was in Standard, and I've missed it immensely for like a couple of years now, and it's just the kind of piece that I don't think you need to make another piece like it. I kind of think it's perfect as it is, so just reprint that. Also might go pretty nicely in like Mayhem Devil decks, because, sacrifice and get a ping. There's just all kinds of cool things Insolent Neonate could do in this and pretty much any format. Just such a sweet creature. Bring that back. But just speaking of sweet creatures they need to bring back. And another reason to reprint Unclaimed Territory. We'll get there too. Number 8, Slivers. It's probably time for Slivers, right? I think the last time we had them was like 2015. I think it was Magic 2015, so maybe it was 2016, but still. Still, it just feels like it's been a while since we've had, or actually that would be 2014 because they're always a year ahead. I screwed that up. But anyway, it's been what feels like for freaking ever since we had Slivers in Standard again, and I think that it's probably time to pull the trigger on that, Some of the most beloved creatures of all time. I was just about to say Slivers is the most popular creature type of all time, but that's probably, maybe it's Elves. Maybe it's Elves. Let me know what you think it is down there in the comments. I think it's probably Elves, but it might be Slivers. Just the casuals love them, obviously. And I think that you could probably push Slivers, again, especially if you reprint an Unclaimed Territory. Or just Cavern of Souls. Just do that, you cowards. But, but if you reprinted Slivers right about now, you could really push them to like maybe be competitively playable. And that would be super sweet. And I don't care if you reprint Slivers, give me Hearth Sliver or Gemhide Sliver. Those are much loved slivers. Crystalline Sliver, whatever. Give me all those. Or you could just print a whole new batch and I'd be fine with that. Maybe print one into Pauper that makes his Pauper Slivers a little bit more playable. You could do all kinds of things if you reprinted Slivers back into Standard. Another 5-color Sliver or just any of the 5-color Slivers that aren't on the reserve list is the caveat. I think Sliver Queen is on the reserve list, is why I say that. But there's like 4 other 5-color Slivers right now, like Sliver Lords. You could reprint any of those, and I'd be pretty happy with that. But I guess the bottom line is Slivers. I'll just say the word Slivers again. It's probably time with so many new players in the mix, thanks to Arena and blah, blah, blah. There's just a lot of people have just recently been introduced to Magic, and why not just introduce them to one of the most popular creature types of all time while also, pleasing longtime fans. Just a win-win. Now, number 7 is like it's a pretty selfish pick, right? I don't think like anyone else would put this on their list, but I really like Piper the Swarm. I'm not saying reprint Piper the Swarm. You could go ahead and reprint it. That actually would be dumb because Throne of Eldraine and Core Set 2021 rotate at the same time. But anyway, I really like Piper the Swarm. There just aren't like that many good rats, and it's not very good on its own. It needs a deck with rats in it. So I was looking for a good rat to reprint, and at first I was like, Carrion Rats looks pretty good. It's actually bad. I was thinking like, oh, Mono Black gets another Savannah Lions stat line, but like it'll never work out that way. But I guess you could make the argument that it's good against Escape. But Carrion Rats is bad though. You don't have to reprint that. And then I was thinking maybe Chittering Rats, which is a personal favorite of mine and a lot of people. Chittering Rats is just such an irritating card. It's such an irritating card. And it might actually be a cool reprint, but I don't know how popular or powerful it would actually be nowadays in a standard environment, so I'm not too sure about that. I was also thinking Rat Colony, and then no, don't do Rat Colony. Don't reprint Rat Colony. Never do that. So what I've landed on here in the end is screw it, Pack Rat. Just reprint Pack Rat. This is, again, generic enough to reprint in pretty much any set, especially a core set where genericity is that the right word? Being generic is sort of valued slightly higher. And I really don't think this is like super powerful in standard anymore. It was pretty powerful in the standard environment it was originally printed into, but I think we've kind of gone beyond a card like Pack Rat. All it would really do is help out a pet deck of mine, and probably not much else, but who knows? If anything, the hype around Pack Rat might be real, because a lot of people remember a standard where Pack Rat was a really stupid card. So, and in a limited environment where Pack Rat was the best card too, for that matter. So, I think that's another reason to reprint it. Maybe reprint, or maybe print some sort of answer to it for the limited environment that's easy to get, because Pack Rat is a beast. It just takes over a game of limited. But that's sometimes what most bomb rares do, so who cares, right? People care. But yeah, I think that reprinting Pack Rat might be the easiest, safest way to not only generate hype, because like it would generate hype, but also like on the low, help out one of my favorite cards that needs a lot of help. But if you're going to reprint a black creature, I think that the more crowd-pleasing option would probably be Stitcher's Supplier here in at number 6. There's just so much you could do with this right now. Obviously, Lurrus deck. You could not only replay it over and over if that's what you wanted to do, and it might be, bring it into play with the Lurrus, mill 3 off the top of your own library, sacrifice it to Woestrider, mill 3 off the top of your own library. It's 6 every turn. You'd probably do some really stanky stuff with that, so hey, that's pretty good right there. But obviously it's milling stuff you could play with Lurrus as well. So I like a lot about Stitcher's Supplier just from that angle. But again, a lot of Reanimator strategies in this format might like a card like this. We've got Undergrowth still in this format, at least until the fall when the Ravnica sets rotate. So, Undergrowth might be helped out by a card like this, as it was when it had Stitcher Supplier in the format the first time. I just think we've all missed Stitcher Supplier, and it's a pretty fair card. And it would keep, some self-mill decks from having to play, blue for Merfolk Seeker Keeper and Wall of Lost Thoughts, like really terrible cards. And Stitcher Supplier is just like a mile above those cards. We all miss it. And, I don't think anybody would fuss about this. And I think a lot of people would be super freaking psyched for it, myself included. So there's no reason not to reprint this card. And again, I hate bringing up the generic argument over and over, and I think this might be the last time I do it. But again, they have named and worded this card in such a way that it's not specific to any world or plane or anything like that. So I think that they have planned on reprinting this a few times. It was originally printed in a core set. So they could do it again, and you should do it, Wizards. Eventually. Why not now? Also, Fuel's Escape. It's a good Magic card. Reprint this is all I'm saying. But let's move on to the halfway point of the list. Here at number 5. I want to talk about a card that I want in Standard to potentially fight Companions. But I'm on the fence about it, whether or not it should even be on the list, but I at least wanted to bring up Pull from Eternity. I feel like if this card was any good, it would probably already see some amount of sideboard play in Legacy and Modern to fight Companions, because Companions are similarly taking over those from formats too. All the most competitive formats in Magic, just Companions are everywhere, except for Pauper. You can still play Pauper Companion free, because that's a good format. Play some Pauper, but anyway. All I'm saying is that Legacy and Modern players would probably want to slot this into the sideboard, if not only to try it out against Companions, and they thus far haven't, so it's probably not worth the card, to be honest, because you're just, you know, you played a card, you lost a card. They didn't necessarily lose a card, right? You just put their Lurrus into their graveyard and they'll get it back. So I'm not actually sure how great this would be, but if you wanted a existing card to combat companions, I think this might be a good one to reprint right about now. But honestly, it's probably not as good as just your basic counterspell for fighting a companion. But I do think it would be a neat one to reprint right now, not just because companions exist, but because we have things like Elspeth Conquers Death and a bunch of other like exile-based removal right now that Pull from Eternity might be at least somewhat kind of decent against if you absolutely have to have your one win condition back and it gets Elspeth Conquers Death or whatever, then Pull from Eternity might be a neat piece to have in your sideboard, especially if you're playing Fae of Wishes. Think about that. So there's some probably neat uses for this card right now, but I'm not sure it quite meets the bar, but I at least wanted to bring it up. Now here we are at number 4, and this is where I'm going to throw those EDH players I was talking about at the beginning of the video, just a little bone here, because it's kind of crazy to me that Staff of Domination has only really seen like one printing ever. It probably needs to get printed again. Especially like you could print this into a standard core set and it probably wouldn't affect standard like that much. Like jank lords like me and a bunch of other YouTubers would probably try to do stuff with it, but mostly this is the one like super EDH centric pick on the list because like I think the masterpiece printing of this is like $80 right now, and just the normal printing of it, the one normal printing of Staff of Domination is like $50. And like, look at it, it really shouldn't be $50. There are some like neat combos you can pull off with it, even infinite combos you can pull off with Staff, but I still don't think that it would hurt too much to reprint this card into a standard environment right now, because it just requires all the mana in the world. Wait, we have Nyxbloom. We have Nyxbloom Ancient right now. I still don't think it's... I mean, that's just janky, right? And, like, let people have their jank, but also let EDH players have their silly cards that they like at an affordable price. There's just no excuse not to have printed this again by now. Now, at number 3, I wanted to include Blossoming Defense on this list, but then I remembered that I've already put Blossoming Defense on a list. It's been on possibly 2 of these lists by now, because I always want Blossoming Defense reprinted, and I think that if you did reprint Blossoming Defense, that'd be a good way of making up for printing Veil of Summer and then having to ban it. It's like, sure, green players just have Blossoming Defense against Agent of Treachery and a bunch of other stuff, you know, it'd be a good card right now. Blossoming Defense would pretty much always be a good card, and I'd like it more than Karametra's Blessing, but it would give like green-white Auras players effectively like 8 copies of Karametra's Blessing, so that's a thing, too. Maybe that would put that deck over the line. So, yeah, print Blossoming Defense. Okay, sure. But if you wanted, like, a really spicy anti-Agent of Treachery pick, it's Gia's Revenge. Now, here's the thing. Gia's Revenge costs a lot of mana, but so does Agent of Treachery. And people cheat out Agent of Treachery all the time. And this isn't a color that it's more easy to cheat this card out if you just, like, ramp into it, right? But there's a billion ways, whether you're playing Luca or, again, like, Neoform... I guess you'd have to get rid of a 6-drop or whatever, but still. You know, I just think that it would be a cheeky sort of answer for Agent of Treachery because they both cost the same thing, and this is amazing, like, anti-agent tech for what it's worth. Also, I guess the uncounterability is fine. I mean, right? So there's just a lot of cool things about Revenge, and even though I'm not sure that it would be, like, the best answer to Agent of Treachery, I think I've probably already chosen the best answer for Agent of Treachery on multiple lists so far, and that's Blossoming Defense. So, or just unban Veil of Summer. Probably don't actually do that. But anyway, I think that if you're looking for like a spicy, fun, cheesy, cheeky way to like combat Agent of Treachery in this format, you could probably do a lot worse than Gia's Revenge. It'd be a fun card to reprint right about now. But at number 2, we finally got into probably my favorite entry on the list. Usually my favorite entry would be number 1, but number 1 is just too perfect. So it's just too perfect. So I had to put Liliana's Caress at number 2. Now, I know, go ahead and woo. I'll let you unpause the video because I think a lot of people are with me on this one. At first I was thinking Jace's Erasure, but I also think I've put Jace's Erasure on one of these lists before. You could do Jace's Erasure, that'd be sweet. I think I'd like Liliana's Caress right now. More than Jace's Erasure even though Jace's Erasure is good. It's so sweet. Just reprint this whole cycle if that's what you have to do. I don't care, but Liliana's Caress will go super sweet while we still have Davriel in the format. That will be, just think about that. Also, Croxa just hit the streets a little while back. This would be really sweet with Croxa because we've got so much like decent discard in this format right now, you know, along with Thought Erasure and just plain old Duress and a bunch of other stuff. There's just a lot of ways to make the opponent discard their hand down. And Liliana's Caress would be a great way of like actually punishing them for doing so, because there's not that many ways to do it. Davriel's like the only way in the format right now. So I'd like another like actual rack-like win condition for these discard decks, and Liliana's Caress seems like just the right ticket in standard right this moment. Just that would be so sweet. Like even against like Fires decks and stuff, you know, usually those decks take like 3 full turns to get going, so you don't even have to cast Auto Erasure on turn 2. Just go ahead and get your Liliana's Caress down, and especially if you went first, you've got all the time in the world to start making them discard cards. It's just I think it would be a sweet card right now. As a matter of fact, I pretty much always think Caress would be a sweet card. But we finally made it to number 1 here, and if you didn't know this already, I should go ahead and tell you, because that'll put this into a little bit more context. But apparently Core Set 2021 is going to be based in some ways around Teferi. He is the key figure of Core Set 2021. I'll let you finish booing, unpause the video. So here's the thing. I think maybe one of the best ways they could approach this is just to reprint the creature version of Teferi. Teferi Mage of Zhalfir. I've always loved this version of Teferi. Teferi's super cool. I actually love Teferi as a character, and I wish that his cards weren't just like fun police on every level over the last few years. Like, actually just print like a fun Teferi card that's fair. But anyway, it'd be sweet if they did that, but they won't do any of those things. They won't do those things. They won't reprint the creature version. So I guess my real number 1 is Teferi's Puzzle Box instead. Imagine Puzzle Box in Standard. This costs 4 mana, so I really don't think it does anything. I really don't think it is. I think it's just another like janky card. But if you wanted to make an argument that this card needed a reprint, you could probably make it convincingly, because the cheapest version of Puzzle Box right now is like $10. Because it's a relatively popular commander card. You know, it's a fun little chaosy thing that produces a big bomby splashy effect, and you can really take advantage of in a whole bunch of ways on the commander table, but even in Standard, which makes me want to see a Standard set reprint, because there's a lot of stuff that you could do with this right now. First of all, just discarding a bunch of cards every turn is pretty sweet with Glenhorn Buccaneer, but we already have like Song of Creation to do that trick, and that trick isn't very good because Glenhorn Buccaneer isn't very good. But aside from that, we have things like Underworld Dreams and Niv Mizzet, so whenever, you know, cards are drawn, we deal a bunch of damage and a bunch of pings, so that would be really sweet. There's just a bunch of stuff. Reanimator decks might want a card like this just to dump stuff in their graveyard. Escape decks might want something like this to, again, dump cards in their graveyard. And I really don't think the card would take off in the Standard environment. It would just be a fun thing to mess around with, but it's so fun. And since this is going to be a Teferi-centric set, and the card kind of needs a price adjustment just a little bit already, why not reprint it into this set? It's on theme. Make it like $3 for the Commander players, and give the janky players in Standard like myself something to mess around with that's an awful lot of fun. Just, again, not just a win-win, but it's a win-win-win. Reprint Puzzle Box. Good card. But that's it for my list, at least. And these lists get weirder every time. Let me know how you feel about all the choices down there in the comments section. And give me your own choices, too. The cards that you really want to see reprinted, not just for the Standard environment, but obviously for, you know, Commander price-wise, or for, you know, even Modern, Legacy, Pioneer, or Historic, whatever, you know. So give me your ideas down there in the comments section, and do all the YouTube stuff. Like the video, subscribe if you're new, hit up the Patreon to support content like this and help choose what content we even do. The whole reason I did this video is because the patrons voted on it, so if you want to be part of that revolution, you can affect the course of YouTube history by just throwing $1 in the Patreon pot every month. Aside from that, I guess I'll put these cards on a list and link them over to TCG Player. If you buy cards from the link, it helps me, but you obviously don't have to buy any of these cards. I wouldn't speculate on any of these being reprinted because, again, I'm always wrong in these videos. I guess I'm pretty much done, so I'll catch you cats later. I'm Deb from the Blaze. Thanks for watching, my wizards. Spread love and be kind.